What up, everyone? How are you guys doing? My name is Dr. J here with my boys Miguel and Frank. Hey, dreams do come true.
Yes, sir.
Bro, I've been dreaming of like hanging out with you guys on this set and working with you guys for like the last 10 years.
Appreciate it. We're here now.
Yeah, I know. There was like 10 years of like blank, and then now it's back, bro. And it's back but like in big time.
So
I feel like if some of our friends were to see this, they'd be shocked.
yeah, they probably would.
Frank, Miguel, and Rizzo going over parenting lessons. So this is something I'm really excited to be with my boys, and I just want to. That's why I wanted to talk about that today. First and foremost, I want to go over our sponsor, Covenant Coffee. I want to do a shout out to them. They work with a lot of the kids that we work with too. They're not just a regular coffee company, but they employ foster kids, and not just the typical foster kids, but the foster kids that age out when they're 18, them. So they employ them, and they really they provide a lot of other opportunities for them. But back to what we're talking about. Today is going to be fun. We're adding on to our third lesson of our parenting. First one, we talked about a general overall. Second one, last session, we talked about all the different diagnosing, right? ADHD, autism, depression, anxiety. So parents, if that's something that you guys are interested in, that's something that you guys are struggling with, and I really went over ADHD in a different light than most people will cover. Look at our last episode. Take a watch out that, because what we're doing is we're building each week on what we're doing. This week is what we're going to talk about. And is last week we identified problems. Diagnosing is just simply saying, hey, look, this person is demonstrating these behaviors right now. And these behaviors fall in a category, and that category is just simply called a diagnosis. It's not saying that's the person's identity. Heck no, it's not saying that's what they're stuck, it's who they are, there's something wrong with their brain. Not at all. It's saying once you get a diagnosis, it's the beginning of the grind. It's the beginning of putting in those reps. That's what we talked about last week. Again, dig in for the future. The next thing I want to do is, once we went over that, once you discover what a problem is, well, there's the treatment part. Treatment, it's an art. It's an art form that you really have to work at. So many of us struggle with the treatment. Anybody can diagnose, and that's where a lot of money comes in. Diagnosing, some of my colleagues, they're all about that diagnosing. They're like, I don't work with anybody, but I diagnose. That's easy. How do you change the behavior where they don't meet those? How do we change the behaviors where we improve what they need to improve? We get rid of the behaviors that they don't need anymore. They no longer qualify, or they no longer have behaviors to even have a diagnosis anymore. That's the hard part. And it first starts with the goals. And it first starts with, when you're doing this work, what are their expectations? And that's what we're going to cover today. I want to introduce my boys, Miguel. Miguel Flores is he and Frank both trained me when I started at probation. They'll dig into that and with their history a little more. And now Miguel is my program manager for the company. And that's a hard gig. Frank, he's my miracle worker. I have him with one of my hardest clients in my organization. And this client is extremely difficult. He even gave me the heebie-jeebies. I don't want to say heebie-jeebies, but he made the hairs rise on my neck. And Frank has taken that client from A to, which is struggling, beating up his parents, to now, transformation. We'll get into that. Miguel, talk to me a little about you, man. Introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Miguel Flores. First of all, thank you for having me. My name is Miguel Flores. I got 20 plus years experience working with youth from all different behaviors, poor behaviors, maladaptive behaviors, to ADHD and also autism. My 20 plus years comes from working at Kern County Probation Department. I'm now retired. And I was assigned to recently, before I retired, to what's called the RAP unit, Reentry, ADA, and Programming. So that's where I was able to kind of utilize a lot of the stuff that we're using now, and I was able to pivot into this career. But shout out to everyone in the RAP unit. Shout out to the probation department.
Yeah.
Hi, Frank Miranda. Also, thank you for having me. Same thing with Miguel. I have 15 years of experience, all from a probation department. Now with Dr. Rizzo. Same thing at the hall, at juvenile hall. I worked all the way from maximum security unit all the way to the lower security units, and I worked in mixed units between those two. But I think honestly, that's where I gained my most experience, was when I barely started in maximum security. That's where I learned to hold kids accountable, help with their behavior changes, stuff like that. And then also in the lower security, I learned a lot there too, because that's where you have to be a lot more patient with the youth. You have same like Miguel said, you have a lot of kids there with ADHD, autism, all these kind of mental disorders, and you have to be patient with those. You can't hold them accountable. You have to hold them accountable, but in different aspects of the programs. If that makes sense.
So if people don't know what the probation department is especially juvenile hall, it's the holding tank. It's like the jail for the toughest kids in our county.
Yes, sir.
If a kid gets caught up for murder, he's going to juvenile hall. If a kid gets something a lot less severe, say steals a car and it only needs a 6-hour hold, guess what? They go to juvenile hall. It's a one-stop shop. Say we have those autistic kids that commit crimes. Guess what? They don't go to no hospital. There's no such thing. They only go to Bakersfield Behavioral Hospital, which is like our old Good Samaritan, is if they're like in need of killing themselves now. There's no other option for kids if they commit crimes, even if they have disabilities. So the holding to juvenile hall was an experience for all of us. And honestly, it taught us a lot, because, man, we dealt with the hardest kids. And what tools do we have?
It's obviously a different aspect, because now when we talk about programming, we're talking about the youth that you mentioned earlier, the youth that shows up and he's autistic or has some kind of diagnosis, and he's in there with someone that, plans to go to prison for the rest of his life. So the difference here, working with the Rizzo Psychological and Behavioral Health Services, is now we get to work one-on-one with that child or the youth that's autistic and ADHD and help him program, versus rolling him up and expecting him to program with the others.
It's a lot more individualized. And that's the experience that we saw. There was a need, because when we were working at juvenile hall, all we had was handcuffs and pepper spray.
Yes, sir.
That's what we had to reduce behaviors. And what did we have to teach skills, build skills?
Very minimal.
At most, a little curriculum, but guess what we had to teach skills? Handcuffs and pepper spray. And that's the reason why, I got out of the field, because I was like, has to be something more. And that's where, a lot of us, many years have gone by, and now we're coming back. And guess what? The best part about what we're doing now is the experience that we learned, the strategies that we learned working with the toughest kids in the county. There's nobody going to be tougher than some of those kids that committed those triple murders, right? The toughest kids in the county. We took those skills that worked for them, and now we're using it in the homes. And guess what? Do you think the results are better or worse?
I think they're better.
Yeah,
What about you,
way better.
Frankie?
Yeah, real better. I mean, like I said, just like you said, like in juvenile hall probation, you're dealing with all these different type of personalities, and you're trying to do a program for all. You know what I mean? But you can't really do that for every single kid. So right here, we're doing just one client at a time. So it's like super manageable.
It's cool. It's cool for you to hear. But that's what we're talking about. And I think this is a clear point to make to parents, right? The strategies that we talked about and the things that we worked with is with working with other adults, working with layers of people, working with teachers, working with bosses. And then we have 24 kids. This stuff still worked. But what about the home? What is there? What's the barriers?
There's a lot of barriers. Environment.
But besides that, it's a lot simpler.
It's a lot simpler.
You got parent, you got child, and you got the clinicians. And I think that's where we have a lot more freedom to do those strategies that we know worked well, and pushing that forward. The strategies that we want to get into specifically today are SMART goals. It's huge. And setting expectations. General, what did you guys think about that stuff?
Man, I love it. That's the bread and butter.
That's the bread and butter, huh?
Yes, sir.
What about you, Frank?
Yeah, you set goals. Tell the kid what we expect what we expect from him, from the expectations, and this is the end goal we want to end up accomplishing. You know what I mean? Like pretty much with like the client I have, you know what I mean? You want to like make him stop hitting his mom and dad. So that's the goal.
You know what? Let's get into that. Hey, how about, so now what I wanted to do is, can you talk a little bit more about your client, Frank?
Yeah. So when I barely started with him, I kind of like used a week to kind of like fill him out, see his behaviors.
What behaviors was he having?
Kind of like talking a bunch of gibberish, talking, not making sense about his environment, kind of like talking about his neighbors, kind of talking like just nonsense.
So a lot of mumbling,
yes,
a lot of attention seeking talking,
yeah,
but also he was also faking like he was demon possessed, right?
yeah,
So that was like he was mumbling to scare people.
Mhm.
And he was like growling and laughing weirdly to scare people.
yeah. And so he was going like that. So I kind of felt out the environment a little bit, felt out the situation, felt how his personality was. He's currently also a 2-on-1, so there has to be there's 2 therapists with him.
And why is he a 2-on-1?
Because he's really physical. He likes to grab. Especially with his dad, he likes to hit his dad a lot.
And is this like that, or is he like
no?
plummeting?
He's grabbing, pulling hair.
It's like a choke. He's like
yeah.
trying to hurt. Huh?
Yeah, he's biting.
And how often was he doing that before you came?
Pretty much every day. I heard. When
It was like a war zone in that house.
Yeah. So when I got there, he started moving on to the therapist. He was trying to grab the therapist, trying to
grope the women.
Him. Yeah,
fondle the women and men.
Initially, my first day there, he was trying to do that with me. I kind of like just told him stop, whatever. But then when I felt more comfortable and I seen how the environment was and seen how his personality was and seeing how he worked, that's when I kind of like
get to the strategies. But we don't want to get to the foot down. We want to dramatize him still.
Yeah.
Tell me how else, what are the other complications that were there when you first started? So he's acting like how was he acting like he's demon possessed?
He was saying that he had like multiple personalities kind of thing. He said that he had 2 different versions of him kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then he had coping mechanisms that they said that this would work, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then from there we went to work. And,
so he was hurting his dad.
Yeah.
He was acting possessed in the homes, which means like there's a point where he was slamming his head on the table.
Yeah.
Right. He's like, when we say acting possessed, what I mean is doing convulsions like this, like convulsions, and then boom, boom, slamming his head on the table. That was his client.
Slobbering all over himself.
Slobbering. Very tough when we walked in. And I've been in every environment. I've been everywhere. This kid made my hairs crawl. Right? I was like, oh my God. And I added a 2-to-1 because I was so scared. We're going to get into the results though in a bit from what our interventions that we try today. Miguel, talk to me about your client.
So some of the behaviors that my client shows
when you first started.
So when I first started and I was able to observe him to see what type of behaviors he had was but he very energetic. So imagine someone that's very energized and he's climbing on tables.
Diagnosis is ADHD. I should preface with that.
Climbing on tables, wasn't able to follow simple instructions, simple directives, even 1 to 2 step. Definitely issues with females. So we're able to kind of notice that right away, where he wouldn't take direction from females.
And rude.
Very rude, very rude, very disrespectful. If you had any items that were out, he would immediately try to take it and run from it. Constant tantrums, always trying to negotiate anything that didn't go his way. And if something didn't go his way, he would tantrum immediately. So those are the types of behaviors that we observed as far as he went.
And the thing is with this, ADHD wasn't affecting this client in the home. The reason why the parents needed us, and they needed us, was what was happening at school.
Yes, sir.
How was school happening?
So the types of things that he would do at school, for example, would be he would show up to school around lunchtime. Just because he felt like it, he would go and touch all the food that was supposed to be passed out. So then the people in the kitchen had to throw out the food because obviously he touched all the food when he wasn't supposed to. He was opening milk cartons and dumping them on the ground. So imagine the spill that was happening there. He would get up and walk out of class and just run around, or he would elope and run away. Anytime someone tried to give him some kind of directive, he would say no, and I'm not going to listen, and then just kind of push forward. So that's
extremely tough.
That's exactly what he was exhibiting at school. And so the school had issues, trying to manage that.
And I want to talk about how difficult these clients are, because the solution at the end of the day, the solution was building a relationship, of course, because that's the power, relationship. But then being specific with what you want them to do. And we call that SMART goals. And we call that setting expectations. Darius, can you bring up the first slide? So I'm going to do a quick lecture on what you want to go to the first part. The first one, go to the first one. I want everybody to see what it looks like. Yeah, look at that. Heck yeah, that's a good picture, huh? I created that from AI. It took me 4 minutes. Look at it. It's a frustrated reader. Hey, that's how I look when I'm reading right there. Struggling, right? All right, now we can go to the next slide. That's what I just wanted all the parents to see that. This is what I mean by SMART goals. Every time you do something, anytime you do something, this ABA stuff that we're talking about, this is not it's not a theory I like to read in a book. What everyone will tell you, this is my lifestyle. Whenever I'm doing something, whenever I'm making a change, when I'm trying to change a behavior, this is the framework I use. The first one is SMART goals, right? Specific. You got to be specific with what you're trying to do. Who, what, where, when, why, right? You want to be able to, and this is why the specific is very important, is because you need to know exactly what you're going to do. Because in order to know if you're doing it right, you got to be able to measure it. If you can't measure it, I'm sorry. What are you doing? Just taking the wind? Oh, he feels better today. Oh, he looks better today. Right? Okay, well, how about tomorrow? Oh, he's doing terrible today. You know, it's too wishy-washy. You need to be specific enough so that you can measure it. Because you need to, and this is the reason why, guys, we talk about measuring, not because Big Brother's gonna be looking over your shoulder and be like, oh, are you doing this right? We need measuring because we have to make decisions on that behavior as we go. Behavior, is it a one-stop shop where I turn on a light switch and it changes?
Oh, no.
Heck no. There's layers. It's complicated. You have to be able to measure what you're doing. So while you're in the process of it, you can make decisions. Have to do that. The next one is called achievable, right? If I'm going to change a behavior, let's start with something as simple as everyone can relate to, working out. I'm trying to get my chest bigger. I'm trying to get buff, bro. I am. I'm not trying to get buff. I'm getting all these supplements, bro. I'm having a trainer. I want to get buff, bro. I'm not playing around now. But I want to like reduce my like midsection, right? Specific, measurable, right? But I want to get huge right here, like so. Right. So this is my goal, bro. Tell me if it's smart. I want to bench 415.
No.
415. I'm gonna bench 415 pounds next month.
No.
Not happening.
Okay, these guys don't know me, but they know me. But what I mean is that achievable?
No.
And if I even set out to do that and I try that the first time and I can't get it off the par, what's that going to do to my motivation?
So kill it.
It's going to kill it. It's going to kill my mentality. It's going to kill my motivation. Everything we have to do, our goals not only have to be specific, they not only have to be measurable, but you have to be able to get it done. It has to be within the threshold of that individual, within that skill set. For me, I cannot do 415. So guess what I did today? Oh, today was leg day, but guess how much I did for my leg day, right? Squats. And I did good form, 135 pounds. And guess what? I added 20 pounds and I measured that. And I slowly increased. And my hope is that I put enough reps in, because that's achievable, that it'll grow. It has to be achievable. Don't set your big goals. Don't set those unreachable goals and get discouraged. Be humble. And the next one, be relevant. Okay? I was going to say be realistic, but I saw the word as relevant. But be realistic with what you're doing. Okay? So that's achievable. It has to be realistic with what you can do next. Because if you don't, A, you kill your motivation. B, you're never going to, that's supposed to be your guiding system. And you're never going to have a good guiding system. And guess what? Me and you, we're trying to change people's behaviors. Let's change that illustration to your client or your client. What happens if I try to make something way too unachievable for our boy? How do you think session's going to go?
It's going to go horrible.
If I try to tell it, and achievable for his client, he can't even, he struggles with reading. So if I said, read, he's a first grader, a second grader now. I want you to read a first grade book for 20 minutes. how do you think my session is going to go?
It's not going to go well.
Right? Because it's unrealistic. So that's what I mean by achievable. And that's what we're working on. The next one, the next key point is smart, relevant. You know what relevant means to me? Meaningful. If it's not meaningful, the change is not meaningful to the individual. Are we going to have motivation to do it?
No.
Right? Isn't that common sense? Everyone, when we're trying to change somebody, when we're trying to do something, we're setting this goal, it has to be not only meaningful to you as a parent, but it has to be meaningful to you, to the kid too. A lot of people who don't follow rules, which is like me, I'm not a rule follower, I'm ADHD. I hate rules. You give me my rules, I'm going to want to punch you. But when you explain the rationale behind the rules, and you explain the rationale behind the reasoning, and you say, well, if you do this, you're going to get this much growth. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in. You have to get buy-in. You have to show it's meaningful. And meaningful, the way you gauge meaningful is simple. What does the person care about? You get what they care about. Guess what, baby? I can just, as long as I take that what they care about, I can move it around. And I own them. But with this, it's what they care about. And when they care about something enough, they will do whatever they can to reach that goal. So that's why when we're doing this stuff, not only does it have to be specific, not only do I need to make sure it's so specific, I can measure it to help guide me, but then it has to be something I can actually do. Because if I can't do it and it's even too hard when I'm trying, I'm going to give up. That's everyone's human behavior. But then it has to be meaningful. What do I care about it? Because if I don't care, guess what? My motivation is going to be low. All right, come on. This is all simple, right? The last thing, time bound. Let's go back to like my physical fitness. Like, so I'm going to get sexy. Right? Okay. Like if I set my goal and I had put no time on it, like, cause I'm in a program right now. I said forever. What do you guys think about that?
You said it go for forever?
Yeah.
Well,
No
if,
time.
if you continue to improve yourself forever, then maybe that's a goal, but you have to have certain goals to track, your progress.
Exactly. You gotta almost, and this is called benchmarks, in betweeners. Are you getting there? Right? And that time bound is very, very, very important for our own mind. What we have to realize is, as human beings, we have to chunk things up step by step, and we have to have an end completion for our own motivation. Because as human beings, right when we get a goal, the first thing we're doing is calculating: can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? How long is it gonna take me? How long is it gonna take me? Oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. Is it too long? Is it right?
Yeah.
You have to set a time, because we're dealing with the human mind. And when dealing with the human mind, when you set a time, you're already giving it a way to start strategizing and planning. That's for the kid, but you do it for everyone. And because the goal is, though, this is scientific. What we're trying to do is we're trying to add science to behavior. That's all it is. It's a simple way of adding science. This is pretty much the scientific method, if you will, right? All I'm trying to do, though, is we can simply use science to gauge several things. So, for example, for me, I'm trying to get stronger. Trying to go from lifting 135 pound squats to 185 pounds. I want to take 3 months. Is that reasonable?
Oh, yeah.
Can I achieve that?
Yes, sir.
That's why time is so important, is because we have a general sense of what we can do within any time. We have that general sense. And when we set that, boom, now everyone can start working towards the same thing. Time bound is just as important as everything. So this is why everyone, when we're doing things, when we're working with you, you're working with your child, when you try to change your own behavior, but let's say when you're working with a child, we want to set SMART goals, specific.
But not only that, though, like you said, like when you reach that 185, it shows that you can actually reach a goal. So a lot of these kids like don't really know about goals, or don't have any goals themselves. When you set that goal for them and they actually accomplish it, and they actually like make it a little tough in the very beginning, and they actually do it and they get the reward, they want to do more goals, and they just want to keep on going and keep on improving.
This is why these guys are scientists, right? What Frank just told us is, he called it behavioral momentum. He said when a person reaches one goal, guess what? They want more. Because what we know about human behaviors is our greatest motivations come from our success. Brilliant, Frank. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Now, Miguel, talk to me. So now I gave the little lecture. Miguel, talk to me about about what you use for your client in terms of SMART goals.
So some of the SMART goals, as far as that goes, what we're using are 2 and 3 step directives. An example I can give is is washing your hands. A lot of times parents will say, "Hey, go wash your hands," but does the client, does the youth, the child, do they know exactly what that means? So what we're doing is we're giving them 2 and 3 step directives. Hey, we're going to wash our hands. We're going to use soap, and we're going to dry our hands afterwards, so that they understand exactly what it is that they have to do versus, hey, go wash your hands. And then they just go and just wet their hands. And then they show you, hey, my hands are washed. Right. And if for whatever reason their hands are still wet, then we say, okay, so we go dry it now. Use a towel or go to the restroom and use a towel out there. So there's a difference. So that's one of the things, is using 2 and 3 step directives so that they understand. Also, redirecting behaviors. Anytime that there's a maladaptive or poor behavior that happens, or some kind of tantrum, you want to immediately redirect the behavior and explain, hey, this is why we don't do this, so that they have an understanding of what we're trying to do. And always set expectations on the front end. We'll get a little bit into that later, but setting expectations, and then you mentioned it earlier, building that relationship, we call it rapport, building that rapport so that the client understands, okay, we're going to work towards something. Setting expectations, building a rapport, and then, like Frank said, having that goal in mind so that they understand, okay, if I get here, I could earn something, versus just getting it when they tantrum or when they want something.
Brilliant. And then Miguel also has another SMART goal that he's working on. His client has attention deficit hyperactive disorder. He doesn't like to do things that he doesn't want to do for a long period of time, right? His attention processing is super, super fast. And right now, our specific goal is to get him to work on something he doesn't want to do for 10 minutes, like reading, like matching, like things like that are very, very important that he needs to learn to do. Miguel, talk to me about your programming on what you do for him daily to get him to pass that, because the goal is shaping. First, we want to see where his baseline's at with how long he can pay attention, and to slowly get him to go further.
So an example that I can give is we're using coping skills or watching mindfulness videos, deep breathing. That's something that the client struggles with and will fight day and night. Oh, I don't want to do it. It's dumb. And so what we do is, again, we remind of the expectations, and then ensure him, like, hey, what's the end goal that we're trying to meet? And then explain to him that we only not do this in session, but this is also for when we're at school or when we're at the store or when we're family, instead of just thinking that, oh, if I do it here, I'm okay. So again, trying to stop those manipulative behaviors from
and you're
from happening.
reminding him of what the goal is, why it's important. And this is a thing you have to realize as parents, is it's a conversation. So changing behavior is constant, and it's explaining the reason why. Because when you hit the why, and when you constantly give that, the kid understands. And since when you started doing that, what happened with our boy?
Oh, we started to see change. We started to see a change in behavior. He started kind of understanding, okay, this is what I got to do in order to earn whatever it is that's set forth for him. So it could be something that maybe the family set up, or it could be something like a fun day, at the end of the week for us. Like, hey, we're going to earn a fun day if we can manage to do this. But first we got to do this, then we're going to do this. So it's the behavior. You start to see the behavior change, but we have to stay consistent at what we're doing.
And we're so simple. In order to keep track of that, we're so simple. We even use a point system.
Yes, sir.
And if he earns the point, specific, measurable, if he can earn the points, then he gets his free time. Now, Miguel, tell us the result at the last meeting at the end of the school year, because we're working all in home. But guess what? We didn't see, we saw growth at home, but the goal is to get growth at school, because that's where a lot of the problems are happening. What did the school tell us at the end of the last year in their meeting?
Well, they were very impressed with his behavior. He's beginning to manage himself and understand that if something's happening, he can ask for assistance, not get frustrated. So definitely on the school side, they're starting to see change in his behaviors.
Fantastic. Frank the Tank. I want to talk about Frank's client. So Frank's client is older, right? So Miguel's client, second grade. Frank's client is ninth grader.
Yeah.
He's a
freshman.
ninth grader. And then we didn't say this earlier, but he's developmentally delayed. That's his diagnosis. Oppositional defiance. And then also he has some cerebral palsy. So he has a lot going on. Your client, we definitely went in and we made some smart goals, right? And his smart goals, we weren't trying to we weren't focusing on building behaviors. His smart goals were focused on reducing behaviors. Frank, how many times was he hitting dad every week?
Pretty
Every
much
day.
every day. He was always trying to grab him. Not only that, but he was also grabbing the mother's customers at the house, visitors. When he would go to stores, he would do the same thing, grab customers, want to hug people, try to touch them in private parts, stuff like that.
Dude, that's so bad. I can imagine how stressed out the parents would be.
Yeah.
You imagine being at the store and your child tries to grab somebody's genitals.
Yeah, and that's what like when you talk about the parents, like they were actually like more like just nervous taking them anywhere.
They're hostage
Yeah.
to him.
Yeah.
And then what did you do after your week? After your week of kind of checking things out, what did you do?
Pretty much, I just went in there, just pretty much demanded stuff of him. I said, if you don't do this, we're gonna do this, stuff like that. I kind of figured out what he likes doing, and stuff like that. I know his parents were saying that they took him to the doctor. I know he was like a little bit on the bigger side, unhealthy side, so they wanted him to exercise more. So from what I talked to the other therapists, like he would refuse to do stuff like that.
He wouldn't do
he
nothing.
wouldn't do
He was
anything like
very
that.
non-compliant.
Yeah,
He was
so
mean.
I pretty much took control and like just said like, hey, we're doing this. I'm like, no, get up. I pretty much like get him up. Like, we're doing this, do this. And then pretty soon, like he was counting them. What I mean? I'm like, no, I'm gonna say this, you're gonna do this, and stuff like that. And then
Hey, but this is the thing though. People have to realize if you want real behavior change, you got to be involved.
Yeah.
You can't be sitting on your couch.
No, no.
Hey, go do this.
Mhm.
Oh, hey, do this. You can't be sitting down across the table and telling people, hey, you need to do this. You need to be with them.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm doing. I'm doing exercises with them, stuff like that. And so, and pretty much it is like for exactly like you say, like a little bit delayed. You would think like he would only be able to hang for like 5 minutes at a task, but I have to pretty much stop him from doing it because he'll keep on going. I mean,
he can now keep on going.
Yeah.
So the result is now we have a client who in session at least can, instead of groping us, instead of slamming his head on the table, instead of acting like he's possessed, we have a kid who can work so long that you have to stop the activity.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. and then now he just really well behaved with us.
Hey, but let's get back to the smart part,
Mhm.
the smart goal. Our main smart goal was he can't hit dad, huh?
Yeah.
And that's what and what do you do? How would you set that up in a session? How did you start setting that up the first time?
Like the parents would notice that he behaves with us. And I said, like, yes, he behaves with us, but he also behaves in school. So I think he likes structure. He also likes discipline. Like he lacks it at the house.
Yep.
So I started getting parents involved. And I said, because Ben, he would never like admit what he does. So I pretty much would bring the parents involved in the session. And I would say, all right, Dad, tell me what Ben did, or what his kid did. And he would tell me. You know what I mean? I would ask the client, what you do? And he would like tell me now. But whenever I had the client by himself, he would never admit to nothing. He would always like lie about it and stuff like that.
So you sat them down and made them be open with each other.
Yeah.
My boy Frank the Tank's doing family therapy with some of the hardest clients in the county.
And so he's getting better. Like I find out what's going on after session. Since that's the issue. Like when we leave, that's the problem areas. So I would make the parents tell me what they're going to do with them. And if they're going to go to the store, I make the client explain what he needs to do.
And what would that be? Give me an example.
So he demands stuff at the store. He demands, I had the parent tell me exactly what they're going for. And then the parent tells me, I said, all right, man, what are you going for? He tells me. So then I say, what aren't we going for? And then so he'll tell me like, okay, I can't ask for toys, stuff like that. I'm like, what happens if you do ask and your mom says no? And then he says, I put it back. I'm like, exactly, put it back. And so the next day, find out, yeah, he did good. So the parents were really happy with him. They take him to the restaurant, I guess, a reward. And the dad was like super happy because the dad is the one that has the issue with him.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
hostage.
yeah.
They can't enjoy life.
So the dad was like pretty much broke down in tears because he was so happy that they were like at a family at a restaurant.
Damn.
And they never had that. you know, so improvement there. We still have work to do, but I'm involving the parents a lot more now. A lot more.
And this, I'm telling you, this isn't complicated. It's just being firm, being strong, being loving, knowing what the kid likes and controlling it, but then being heavily involved. But Frank, like he was saying, he was very clear. When you go to the store, this is, if you want something and you ask for it, you may not get it, right? Actually, you're not going to get it. And if you ask for this and you don't get it, what are you going to do? I'm going to say yes. I'm not going to tantrum, right? Those are very clear expectations. And when you do it and you do it consistently and you do it with a team, guess what happens every time? It's guaranteed results. And then not only do you do it at home, the result goal is you tie it into school. But this is where I wanted to leave off, everyone. We're at 36 minutes. We went over already. I love it, bro. I want to leave everyone here. I want you guys to know that these strategies are simple. And I know they're simple. But remember, the simple is the hardest because that's the stuff that you got to be consistent with in order for it to work. It's putting in those reps and it's talking to others and it's seeking others while you use science. You got to use science. And doing this together is to guarantee results. All right. Feel free to like, subscribe. Oh, gentlemen, is there anything else you want to leave us with?
We forgot to mention setting expectations.
We'll get to that next time.
Yes, sir.
I don't even think, dude, I didn't know it was going fast, dude. We went fast. Is there anything else you want to leave me with?
No, just thank you for having us. Shout out to all the agencies out there that help us out and that work with us in collaboration. We look forward to, continuing to do that. Thank you.
Frankie?
No, thank you for same thing. Thank you for having us. Also, give a big shout out to the therapists. They do a lot of work and they do a lot of help for the youth that we have.
Shout out to the behavior therapists. You guys in the homes, you guys in the trenches, you guys putting in the work. You're the real change. Thank you guys. Like, subscribe. And if you have any questions, feel free to shout us out. All right. Peace.